Well, the Prince of Pot is expected to have surrendered himself to authorities this morning at BC Supreme Court. Marijuana activist Marc Emery could turn himself in as he continues to face possible extradition to the U.S. over drug trafficking charges. Emery is accused of selling marijuana seeds by mail to U.S. buyers. If the Canadian Justice Minister decides to extradite Emery, he could spend several years in a U.S. federal prison.
A 5-year battle by Canada's so-called Prince of Pot to avoid extradition to the United States on drug charges is over. Marc Emery and his wife arrived at BC Supreme Court early this morning to await his extradition to the United States. Emery had hoped strong public support would convince Canada's Justice Minister to keep him here. But the extradition order has been signed, and the 51-year-old is now slated to serve a 5-year sentence in an American prison for selling marijuana seeds online to American customers. Today, he thanked his supporters for all their help and the continuing efforts.
I believe that they will reward me by their continued vigilance if I'm sent to jail. I'm quite confident of it. I have every belief that millions of Americans and Canadians will be very, very upset and be very angry and hostile towards the government. If I am extradited, I've told my supporters, every Conservative member of Parliament is to be hounded endlessly and unrelentingly and unmercifully until they are defeated in the next or following elections.
Emery will likely be sent to the U.S. by the end of this week. His lawyer says there's a chance he will be allowed to return to Canada to serve his sentence here. Vancouver's so-called Prince of Pot will soon be on his way to the U.S. to start serving a 5-year sentence for drug distribution. Marc Emery surrendered himself to sheriffs in Vancouver today as part of a cross-border plea bargain. He was arrested 5 years ago for selling marijuana seeds across the border, and his supporters expect him to be extradited within a week.
Everyone was holding on to hope that it wouldn't come to this. But Vancouver's self-proclaimed Prince of Pot, Marc Emery, is going to jail in the United States.
Oh, I'm never scared about any of this. I've anticipated this my whole life. This is what my father prepared me for. This is what I've always prepared myself for. I'm never scared of any of these things.
But Emery's wife, Jody, is scared about her husband's fate in an American federal penitentiary.
There's people, there's gangsters. It's a nightmare, and I know this because we cover and watch it. But whatever happens, I will still stand by him, and I'm going to fight for him. I'm going to try and bring him home as soon as possible and make sure that when he comes home, every other drug war prisoner is home with their families too.
Emery surrendered to sheriffs at BC Supreme Court in Vancouver after his bail, granted in November, expired. The federal justice minister has decided Emery will be extradited to the U.S. Even though he hasn't been found guilty of anything in Canada, the 51-year-old agreed to plead guilty to selling marijuana seeds to U.S. customers over the internet in exchange for a 5-year sentence. If the case would have gone to trial in the States, Emery could have been sent to jail for up to 50 years.
If Mr. Emery's broken the law and you think the case is so airtight against him, why aren't we proceeding against him here in this court, right here in Vancouver? Why have we outsourced our judicial system to the United States of America?
After Emery is sentenced by an American judge, he will make an application for a treaty transfer in hopes of being sent back to Canada to serve his jail time. Now, American authorities have already agreed to this, but the final decision will lie in the hands of the federal public safety minister.
Mr. Emery's going to have a difficult time getting his sentence transferred to Canada.
The BC Civil Liberties Association believes governments on both sides of the border want to make an example of Emery.
Well, there are a number of people in Canada that are shipping seeds into the United States, and there certainly were around the time that Marc was engaged in this conduct. I don't think it's a surprise that the Americans chose him. He's a very outspoken activist on marijuana issues, very opposed to the drug war, and a very high-value target for them to take down because he's so high-profile. It sends a message to other people.
The clock is ticking. Emery will remain in custody in Port Coquitlam. He will be extradited to the U.S., probably Seattle, in the next 1 to 2 weeks.